So it turns out that even in the world's oldest democracy, you can get people to change their politics simply by giving them cues that almost automatically trigger us versus them thinking. And there is nothing unique about that. Groups of humans throughout history have been vulnerable to having their decisions hacked by cues that trigger their biases in favor of us and against them. But what's different today is that the hackers now have a tool that would make a 20th century dictator drool: social media. So maybe it's not surprising that the old certainty that democracy would eventually spread around the world is suddenly fading.
Turns out that's looking like it was wrong. We're seeing far-right parties in Europe laughing at a democracy and the liberal order the way Mussolini did, and subverting the mechanisms of control on their power, like the judiciary and the press. Of course, in the United States, there are also threats from the left. There are threats of political correctness that are trying to restrict freedom of speech. So we are entering a period in which our certainties about democracy and freedom from the 20th century are being questioned from both the right and the left.
And in the United States, the retreat by each side into its own social media echo chamber, where they only hear from people who think just like them, has become one of the greatest threats our democracy has ever faced.
Now, because of social media, any time a swastika is drawn anywhere in America, or any time someone says something rude or aggressive to a Muslim or an African American, that can get picked up and made national. And since we'll never get to zero, these things are always going to happen somewhere in our country of 330 million, so there will always be a supply between 10 and 1,000 incidents every day to keep the left in a permanent state of outrage. And same for the right. It's very hard to have democracy under those circumstances because democracy requires us to compromise. But how can you compromise with them when they are so evil?
One result is that amid the most avid consumers of social media, young people, fewer than 1/3 think it's very important to live in a democracy. And 1 in 6 think that, given what they've been told on social media about what a mess the United States is, it would be better if the military took over.
Maybe it's time we face the fact that it is very, very hard to run a country in which everybody has freedom of speech and freedom of religion and the right to vote, especially when that country is filled with people of different ethnic backgrounds and religions and political points of view. Considering everything that we know about how vulnerable we are to our own biases and to manipulation, maybe the challenge here isn't, spreading democracy around the world. Maybe it's just keeping it alive.